Howdy, soldiers. Welcome to my queer little lair. This is a candle. Lair? I barely know her. And I know this doesn't match the, half supervillain, half My Chemical Romance goth fan thing that I have going on today, but hey, sometimes even villains strain their wrists. Are you too somebody that looks at all these Pride Month reading lists being like, ew, why is everything so rainbow and fluffy? I don't want to read about people falling in love and being good and doing amazing things for their community. I just want to watch some people burn the world down. And you know what? Same, because we talk about gay rights all the time. But what about gay wrongs? Because throughout history, and even up to this day, queerness is still seen as something that is deviant and morally corrupt, and so, therefore, queerness is equated with being evil. And just like how queer books have evolved from books that are simply about being queer into a wide array of books that just happen to have queer characters, going on adventures and stuff, so can queer characters just, have, enter their villain era. We're reclaiming the bury your gays trope, where the first gay character introduced in a new media gets killed off first. No more, because we're taking that, we're reworking it, we're serving it, we're putting it down, flipping it, and reversing it. With how we've been villainized over the past couple of centuries, I feel like we can be a little evil. As a treat. In the stack of books that I have, these characters aren't even villainously queer-coded, they are just straight up evil. So without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in. Join me as we talk about some of my favorite messy gays, corrupted queers, and absolutely, positively depraved sapphics, and my personal favorite dark queer fantasy stories with villain arcs. Now, when everybody talks about corrupted queer books, I feel like we always get the same two or three. We always get Iron Widow by Sharon J. Zhao, which, fair. This is a book about mech bots and female rage and a poly power throuple who are taking down the government. Why wouldn't you want to read this? If you haven't already, what are you doing? Get your life together. We always have Vicious by V.E. Schwab, which is about two rival college kids who are both horrible people who kill each other and bring each other back from the dead to be able to gain supernatural powers and then try and kill each other again. And The Atlas 6 by Olive E. Blake, which yet again just has a bunch of terrible people doing bad things instead, but it's like a college institution, secret society, some wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. And at this point, honestly, if you're even remotely in your villain era and you want to read some messy queers, this is kind of these are the top three that you usually go for. I also guess you kind of get Six of Crows as well, because this is group of morally questionable people pulling heists in a Russian-inspired fantasy world. Also, TV series. You know about this book. So what are you gonna do when you've already read all these and you want something new and knife sharp to feed that monster within? Well, you come to this video. We'll start off slow, we'll start off easy, like the beginning of a torture session, or dripping blood. You may have already heard of this one, but I need to recommend it again, and that is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. A vampire gothic that tells the story of Constanta, the first wife of Dracula, in a story of obsession, power, and seduction. Saved on the brink of death by a mysterious stranger, Constanta gets brought into this world of debauched immortals. As the years go by, she slowly begins to get disillusioned with her husband and his lifestyle, and starts to question her loyalties when Dracula brings on two more consorts over the years, a starving artist and a young aristocrat. This is also a poly book, so Constanta, Magdalena, and Alexei begin this dizzying, passionate affair with one another and slowly begin to unravel why Dracula turned all of them in the first place. But bonds forged in blood can only be broken by death, and as they plot the demise of their creator, they all start to question their own morality and humanity and what it means to be able to live a second life. It's this twisted book about love and revenge and passion and family and breaking free of an abusive partner. Constanta is only considered good because she's willfully ignorant of all the hurt that her husband is causing, and there is a big allegory in here on domestic abuse. And as she grows closer to Lena and Alexei, and they all begin realizing the thumb that they're under, and they all start scheming, and then, from there it's blood and gore and death, but in a good way, in a revengeful way that you're yes bitch, work. Constanta is the head of the snake, and then Lena is just in the background scheming the whole time, and Alexei, he's really just there for shits and giggles. And sometimes that involves killing people. This book has the slow drip of unraveling. It is about getting your hands covered in grave dirt and bringing out the viciousness for the people that you love. Sometimes to kill a monster, you must become a monster. And I loved watching the arc that all three of these people had, particularly Constanta. What's an evil way of saying something was delightful? This was positively sordid. Next up is a story particularly immoral. It is a sapphic story that is practically oozing viciousness about wicked girls and revenge plots, and that is Serpentine Valentine by Gianna Darling. This is a contemporary sapphic dark romance that is a Medusa retelling that takes place on a college campus. Since this is a Medusa retelling, there is a sexual assault at the beginning of the book, and SA is mentioned multiple times throughout the book, although there is nothing in graphic detail. Lex Gorgon is a scholarship student at the prestigious Archeron University whose life gets upturned when she is assaulted by a male professor. The school doesn't do anything to help her, and after a period of academic probation, she's back on campus and a complete social pariah. So not only does she start planning bloody revenge on the professor and also the president of the school itself, she and her sisters become the man-eater crew who go around campus beating up men who assault women. And part of this ultimate takedown of the school is for her to seduce the president's daughter, Luna. But what starts off as a means to an end slowly turns into a real relationship as Luna and Lex start getting closer together, and Lex realizes that she might be falling in love with someone for the first time. We also get to hear from Luna, who is slowly understanding her own sexuality and realizing that the mother figure that she has is not who she says she is, and how she's becoming more and more disillusioned with the adults in her life. Now, this book is a bit over the top. Like, Lex in particular is very dramatic, being all this like, I am the darkness, I am the light, I'm the shiver in your bones to take you down, and I'm like, okay, Batman, like, relax. But being queer is being the drama. It explores the shame and the guilt and the rage that you feel after an assault, and the changing relationship you have with your body, and the changing relationship you have with the people around you, and the internalized misogyny that a lot of women have that they still use and weaponize against one another. It's also hella spicy. Like, you are not only seducing Luna, you are seducing me. I'd convert to the dark side if you did some of that stuff to me, my god. A story of loss and revenge and women's rights and women's wrongs. It encourages you to bare your teeth and take action, so everybody grab a sword. If you're watching this video, I know you have at least one, okay? Go grab it. We ride at dawn. Maybe not dawn, that's kind of early. Can we do like 10 a.m.? Next up is a positively perverse YA that might have Lewis Carroll either applauding them for their creativity or rolling in his grave, and that is Off With Their Heads by Zoe Henning-Mikuta. This is an ungodly Alice in Wonderland retelling where Wonderland is a dark, corrupted forest full of monstrous saints, and our two main characters, Ika and Caro, are both saint hunters for the Red Queen. But there's a secret about these monstrous saints that the Queen has been hiding, and as the two of them enter into one another's circles, they start realizing that there's a conspiracy behind the throne and they have to work together once again. The writing in this book is very peculiar, and I think you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, because you are reading from the perspective of two people who have had their minds cracked by this magical forest, because the more magic that someone uses, the more it wears away at their mind, and they actually cry and bleed magic. And there are gods in here, but the way that gods manifest is based on what someone personally believes in. So there are gods like quiet or like sadness, but the two girls in here, because of their wicked, wicked hearts, decide to become hunters, and that creates the god of carnage. You know what else is wild? The amount of body horror in this book. Holy shit! It is unnerving, it is uncanny, it is grotesque and macabre, and honestly, just freaking gross. And to add the cherry on top to this topsy-turvy world, this is a Korean-inspired fantasy, so we get a lot of Korean words and slang and honorifics, and a lot of Korean language in this, as well as most of the towns, and even some of the gods are just written in Korean, which I thought is really cool. These are two girls with sharp edges, and they are not afraid of anything, which makes them incredibly dangerous, but also incredibly compelling. The loneliness that you get when you used to have another half, like the two of you have experienced trauma in a certain way, and you can't ever share that with someone else, but then you also hate that other person. It's lying, cheating, stealing madness. It's about broken bonds and blood and sisterhood and loving the monster that someone has become and accepting the monster that you are inside. This is unlike any retelling that I have ever read. So if you're in the market for a nasty reimagining of a childhood favorite, maybe you want to check this out. And I'm not only saying that because Disney paid me, okay? Disney paid me to do a cool video on TikTok. My thoughts in this video are my own. Ooh, I'm already not feeling fantastic, and this is only my second and a half coffee. For this video, I really should have drank like 4 or 5 coffees in a row to really give off that chaotic energy, but Even I'm not that much of a degenerate. For this next book, we're gonna get a little bit more angry. We're gonna get a little bit more twisted. We're gonna get a little bit more culty. We're gonna get into Seven Faceless Saints by M.K. Lobb. We're doing magic, mayhem, and murder with some disaster bisexuals and a couple dark gods thrown in for fun. And flavor. A YA military horror Italian-inspired fantasy world that takes place in the city of Ambrosia, where saints and their disciples rule the city, and many young people get conscripted into the Saintless War. Rosanna is a disciple of the god Patience, but what no one really knows is that she's there to take down that temple from the inside out, as her father recently lost his life in the war, and she has joined the rebellion against the gods. Whereas Damien is the head of the Palazzo security, and he's trying to do anything to gain the favor of his general father, while also dealing with a horrible PTSD from being in the Saintless War for over 3 years. The two of them used to be childhood friends, but then Roz's father died and Damien went off to war, but now they are back in the same city and have to work together to figure out why this series of murders is happening, and maybe that there's a cult behind it and they're doing something real funky with people's eyes. The two of them are tracking down murders, both godly and human, and something even more unholy, as their heist brings them from the temples above ground to the deep darkness beneath the city. There's a surprising amount in here on PTSD and the anxiety and depression that you get once you come back from war, and how Damien is really struggling with this, and how Roz calls him out and is like, hey, you need to take care of yourself, reach out to people, go to fucking therapy. Roz tops this man in a variety of ways, and honestly, like, hey girl, hey, you're doing a great job, continue on with that. So the two of them are reconciling in this second chance romance that I do not hate. The pining is out of control. Damien, I have not seen a man simp so hard since Will Herondale. I like a girl with a little viciousness in her heart, and Roz is the kind of character that you will follow into the darkness. And if you want to get into some fun religious trauma and see how the gods can turn people against each other, particularly a full pantheon of gods, this has some of the coolest god lore that I've read in a long time. In a world where saints and sinners are often one and the same, what side are you going to pick, and how far will you go for the people that you love? Will it involve your devotion? Will it involve your blood? Will it involve your flesh? Will you become a monster? Or are you a monster already? God, why are all these villain origin stories so damn depressing? Well, I guess that's what you need to have a compelling villain, right? They have to have a tragic backstory. It's like the more tragic your backstory is, the more evil you can be. Like, those rise at the same level. And honestly, in this story, I think I would allow the main character to be even more evil than that. Because Dmitry Alexiev from The Sins on Their Bones by Laura A. Samutin, I feel like he's not tapping into his true villain potential. Because see, this is a Jewish folklore-inspired alternative history of 19th century Eastern Europe, where Dmitry used to be the Tsar of Novosvitsevo until his estranged ex-husband Alexei used dark magic to usurp him from the throne. Now Dmitry and what's left of his court are trying to retake the country, while Alexei is diving deeper and deeper into this demonic magic that he calls holy science. But at the same time that Dmitry is regaining his strength and support and falling in love with his spy master, he's also unraveling the fact that his ex-husband was very abusive towards him, and this book does have a lot on what it means to be a survivor of domestic abuse and intimate partner violence. This story hurts because it's going into the guilt and grief and shame of being in a toxic relationship and dealing with all this wartime trauma, but also balanced with the happiness of finding this newfound family and falling in love again and realizing that you're worthy of happiness. Everybody in this book feels so deeply, and that's what makes them so relatable, and also what made me cry. The magic and the world of this feels a little bit Shadow and Bone Darkling, mixed with Koshke the Deathless, mixed with A Strange and Stubborn Endurance. Like, this book is doing a lot, and all of it's horrible, but all of it's good in a horrible way. Like, this world is queer normative, and that's the only thing about it that won't give you trauma. And since Alexei is just diving deeper and deeper into this madness of wanting to raise a demon army to keep the country safe, it's like, when your husband starts raising the dead, like, big red flag. The twisted religious fanaticism is not something you will find in any religion's Bible, and the body horror in here that is related to rebirth and magic and sacrifice is just absolutely nasty. Your sins are written on your bones, and so now also is the name of God. It also taught me that to summon angels, you either have to take a bath, kill somebody, or get wasted on hard drugs, which was an aspect of Judaism that I didn't know before, so thank you, Laura A. Samutin. If you've been waiting for a book out there to just show up and devour you, That is what this book is. I would highly recommend checking it out. Now, Sins on Their Bones is particularly grotesque, so for this next one, let me give you one that has less gore and horror in it, but no less illegality. Has this ever happened to you? You, a young witch, are brewing illegal love potions in your house to help your family, when one day you find out that your mother has been shot by this iron-hearted police officer, ACAB, and because of that you are drawn into this conspiracy with the Grand Witcher who's going to use your power for evil, except maybe it's not quite as evil because you're brewing potions to kill corrupted politicians. So like, that's good, but killing people is bad and you're feeling really conflicted about it. Also, you have some kind of demon living rent-free in your head. Well, if not, and that's an experience that you would like to participate in, you can read The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste, a contemporary fantasy in an alternative modern day where witches and humans are divided. Witches are fairly recent public knowledge and the government is keeping a very close eye on them. There are riots and petitions. In the middle of this, Venus Stoneheart is brewing illegal potions to help out her family. However, brewing comes at a cost, and if Venus isn't caught and put in jail, she will eventually die because of the blowback of these potions. And if that's not hard enough, she also has some kind of dark entity sharing space in her head because of a mysterious incident a few years ago. But the monster in her head has other ideas, and honestly, like, let him out to play a little bit, you know? See what happens. Well, we know what happens, and it's bad. And because her brewing is illegal, and her family's involved in it, her whole family is part of this, like, witchy crime syndicate, so we get to see this underworld, back alley black market of magic and magic spells, which I love. There's a lot of stuff in here on, like, what it means to fight fire with fire, the whole, if you take an eye for an eye, the whole world would be blind. But what are you going to do when your community and your family is being attacked? Like, you can't just sign petitions until something stops. Like, you have to take action, and it is those actions that make you question yourself and your morality. It's a big allegory for racism and othering against the Black community, as Venus and her family are Black witches, but also of the queer community because Venus is bisexual and we have an NB love interest, which I love. She's getting brutality on all sides because of the police violence and law violations that are happening to her people on one side, but then the vicious blowback and brutal magical costs of doing this type of magic is on the other. The way that she is written is so sympathetic and so compelling that you fully understand her struggles, and that's why I don't blame this book for being long and having some, like, long pacing, because we get to see the inner workings of her descent into, you know, being bad. But it's like, what would you do in that situation? Would you do it any differently? Maybe sometimes violence is the answer when it comes to groups of old white men trying to control groups of people that they're not a part of. Hey there, FBI agent who's watching my videos. I've never done anything illegal in my life because I'm a goody two-shoes who is scared of authority. However, I may perhaps brew something up if the government continues to make decisions like it's doing. And I don't think I would be the only one. And lastly, it's a bit of a bonus. It's a little bit of a wild card. It's a little different than the rest of these books. You know, there's less, like, blood and swords and killing people. Actually, there's a lot of blood and swords and killing people, but in a different way. I was having this thought as I was creating this list of, you know, these books here, these are all books where the main character is villainous. They're the one that is causing destruction. A lot of the times, they don't care, and that's what I love about them. They're taking back control of things. They've turned off their moral compass. They're getting revenge. They're being selfish for the first time. They're doing it for themselves, but they're doing it outwardly to other people. They know that they're not doing it to be a good person. They are doing it for power or revenge. But I was thinking about this book in this series, because when you look at it overall, you're thinking, yes, this is a hero's journey. You know, bad things are happening, but, like, this main character is doing this all for the greater good and for the greater good of themselves. But the more that you look into it, you're like, oh, Kira, darling, you are hurting yourself and many, many others, and that is from the Broken Blades Halfling saga by Melissa Blair. Kira is the King's Blade. She is an assassin in a fantasy world where fairies, elves, and humans all interact, and being magical is outlawed. When a mysterious figure called the Shadow pops up and is starting rebellions, Kira is made to go and hunt him down. But then, of course, we find out so much more about this whole conspiracy and the kingdom and magic and who she is, and she is sent on a surprising journey throughout Fairyland. There's going to be 4 books in the saga, 3 have come out already, and it really hit me in the 3rd one how much wrongness there is in this series. To begin with, Kira is an assassin, but she's killing because she has no other choice, and she's also killing to protect some people in the palace, and a lot of the people that she's tasked to kill, she actually doesn't, or she does a type of quiet mercy killing because she knows that it's her life or theirs. She is an alcoholic and is heavily addicted to a like opium berry substance. There's a ton in this series on becoming an addict, addiction itself, how it impacts your life, what it's like recovering, what it's like relapsing, also self-harm as a way of self-punishment, and how this grief and shame and horror of your past actions is impacting you going forward. And all of this in the first 2 books is being explored in a positive light. Kira is our hero. She's going through her hero's journey. And yeah, we like cause some destruction. Some people die. And then the 3rd book happens and then like a lot of people die. Ooh, Kira, darling, you just killed a lot of people. And I know that this is supposed to be for the greater good and they weren't good people, but then it's like, at what point does she just start becoming the villain? Of course, part of her story is that she gets acceptance and she gets friendship and love from a new community, and she's learning to love herself and yet again believe that she is worthy of love and life. And even though I agree, Kira and her band of merry heroes is definitely better than what's currently on the throne. Jesus fucking Christ, I want to punch that guy in the face. The way she's getting there is pretty damn bad. This is similar to The Poisons We Drank, in which fate is just continuously handing you horrible cards. And what do you do in those scenarios? You are the leader of a revolution, but what happens when your actions make them horrified to stand next to you? In her grieving, she is doing a lot of harm to herself. So in that regard, she is a villain to some, a hero to others, and kind of a villain to herself. So Kira may not be a villain, but she's definitely committing some women's wrongs. And I think that is that on that. Mostly because my wrist hurts too much to hold up any more books. Villainy doesn't pay well, nor does it have good benefits. I'm honestly just here for the aesthetics. So there you are, a tower of gay wrongs. And while usually I do not condone violence of any kind, and I try to keep people in my heart with love and acceptance, and don't think that crime is good, sometimes you just want to see a hot lady burn down the world for you. Because if my 2 options are to suppress my true feelings and be a stand-up citizen and do nothing wrong in my entire life, or get to be my queer little self and wear some fun outfits and do crime, I'm obviously gonna go with option B. And if I get in trouble for that, I would like to turn your attention to the many, many people in power in our governments worldwide that are just doing absolutely nothing to stop or help or consider the major atrocities that are happening throughout the world because of greed. So, you know, maybe crime is good, actually. But if you feel like you're an upstanding citizen or you've just stolen from the rich, please check out the charities and organizations that are in my description box. If you could even donate $5 to a family or a kid in need, then that's great. We love to see it. But even villains can be polite, so please leave down below what your favorite villainous queer books are. I will also link my shirt and my necklace in the description box below if you would like to support some small queer-owned businesses this month. As much as I would like to say that I am on my way to yell at the government or, I don't know, corrupt the youth of today into all becoming queer, I need a nap. I thought the coffee was gonna help, but it turns out that the caffeine crash is my true enemy. You know where to click to like the video, you know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!